Good morning, everybody, and a very warm welcome to the Circuits Catalunya for this final event of the season for the Radical European Masters. We have got a triple header to bring the season to a close and to determine the outcome of the championship. It's a very warm welcome from Will Brown for Radical Sports Cars, myself, Ben Evans, to an absolutely beautiful day here just outside Barcelona. It's about 20 degrees, gloriously sunny, and a large field of cars assembled for this final event of the year for the Radical European Masters, headed in qualifying this morning, Will, by James Swift.
Yeah, James did a fantastic job in qualifying, always goes very well here, and what a fantastic setting for this championship finale, with it really very, very tightly hung in the balance.
And then it is Paddy McLuhan who lines up in second place, the car that he's going to be sharing with Victor Correa, and they were promising in Monza as a driver combination last time out.
Yeah, that's right. If they can keep consistency and stay on the track across the duration of the 16-minute race, then they'll be in for a shout as well. That's Terence Woodward there again alongside him on the second row. Had a little bit of a tricky time in qualifying, it would be fair to say, but a good result there and fourth on the grid.
If Terence Woodward and Ross Kyder, it's all about consistency this weekend, heading towards the championship. Now that looks like Alain Costa at the wheel, and he's sharing this weekend with Johan Schier, and that is unusual. Alain has been single-handedly competing in most of the races this season. This is how they line up in full then. So James Swift and Paddy McLuhan row 1, Terence Woodward and Alain Costa row 2, then Jack Bartels and Ozzy Yusuf on the third row for Marcello Maritiotto and Andrew Ferguson, then Ricardo Dona, and welcome back to Pete Beltshaw. Ron Caldwell in 11th place, just clear of John Corbett in 12th. Then John Gandar and Bradley Ellis. Then John Caldwell, Marcus Johnson, Mark Hignett, and then James Abbott. He is due to line up in 18th, but our understanding is he will be starting from the pit lane as the drivers are given the 3-minute signal. It's a 60-minute race, and of course the real intrigue this season has been that tactical dimension with the 20-minute pit window that comes in the middle third of the race. Yeah,
so we've seen really a lot of the drivers electing, particularly the pro-am pairings, electing to put the pro in as soon as possible. But ultimately, it's going to be determined by whether or not we have any safety cars, and also fuel strategy is going to play a bit of a part today. It's a fast circuit here at Catalunya, lots of high-speed corners and sustained acceleration, which may well play into the hands of the larger capacity fuel tanks of the Spiders.
Yeah, do we think the SR8 is going to need to refuel?
I think that will be an interesting question to find out. I think at the moment it's difficult to call. I think we'll ultimately see in this first race which way the teams swing, and then the rest of the teams will follow suit. So somebody will have to take a brave. I think ultimately somebody who takes a brave move in this race one may really profit.
So there are a number of championships to be resolved this weekend. There is the Masters class, which is for the Spiders and the SR8s. There is the Supersport class for the SR3 RSXs and the SR3. And then there is also the Fangio class across both the aforementioned classes for the drivers of a slightly greater vintage. So it's Jack Bartels who is heading the Fangio class in 5th place. The Supersport fastest qualifier was Marco Cencetti, but it's his co-driver Marcello Maritiotto who's going to be starting from 7th place. And as we get ready for the cars to go on the formation lap, Will, some very, very exciting news this week about the Race of Champions, Radical.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Now, Radical's been selected as an official partner for the 2015 Race of Champions, which takes place at the Formula Olympic Stadium in London in just 3 weeks' time, on the Friday the 20th and the 21st of November. So, yeah, really excited to be involved with that exciting new project. Lots of big names named for that: Sebastian Vettel, Daniel Ricciardo, Nico Hülkenberg, stars of two-wheel racing as well, Jorge Lorenzo, Mick Doohan, and more names yet to be announced. So that's going to be a really exciting event. Of course, the Nations Cup takes place on the Friday, which battles the different countries' teams against each other, and then it's the shootout for the fastest driver in the ultimate Race of Champions champion on Saturday.
Promises to be a great weekend, and really great the Radical Sports Cars are one of the partners, because I'm intrigued to see how they get on with the rapid acceleration of the Radical around what will be quite a tight and twisty circuit.
They'll all be featuring in identical SR3 RSX race cars, the same type of cars that are competing here this weekend at Barcelona. And of course they're quite a high grip, and although it's quite a tight and twisting course, I think they'll really get a great feel for certainly the medium speed aerodynamics and just the superb grip and balance of the car.
promises to be very entertaining as the green flag is waved. Now the car's heading off on the green flag lap ahead of the rolling start that will get the first of this weekend's 3 races underway for the Radical European Masters around the home of the Spanish Grand Prix for well over 20 years now. Now the first Spanish Grand Prix this track held back in 1991, and it was that legendary side-by-side moment between Nigel Mansell, Ayrton Senna into the first corner, pretty much exactly the point of the circuit we're looking at now, which remains for many the iconic image of this circuit. But then we cast our mind back 12 months ago. We had an absolutely brilliant weekend to determine the Radical European Masters Championship with that head-to-head weekend between Tristan Vidas and Bradley Smith.
Yes, ultimately went down to the last race and a mistake by Vidas which handed Smith the title. So yeah, we could really see a thrilling finale here, and it's always a popular circuit with Radical races because of the layout, the gradient change, and there's some really high-speed corners here that showcase the abilities of these cars to the full.
So there is a glimpse of the Spider of Jaap Bartels, and Jaap, as ever, showing with Stuart Mosley this weekend. And certainly, if the SR8s need to refuel, then he and Stuart are well poised for a good weekend.
Yeah, that's right. And just looking across at the moment, they're looking pretty good in terms of pit stop penalty as well at the moment. So they'll be running an overall 85-second pit stop with success seconds as well, which is roughly similar to their rivals. The only people that are sort of really carrying a big load this weekend is James Swift, particularly with his 110-second pit stop. So. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out in the midsection of the race. But as we know, it's not over till it's over, and anything can change in the middle. Safety car period, a fluff up in the pit stop change, and it's all out the window. Yeah,
it's probably worth just explaining quickly for anybody who hasn't joined us for Radical European Masters Racing this season, which is that the way that performance is balanced out through the season is with these pit handicap additional seconds being added to the cars that finished at the top of their class in the preceding races. And I think that's becoming really the recognised form now of success equalisation over ballast, which can sometimes unduly influence how people race. The success seconds throughout the year do even out very nicely, but for our pole sitter James Swift, that means that he is going to need to have an absolutely brilliant opening to this race to try and build a little bit of a buffer, because Paddy McLuhan alongside him is going to be in the pits something like 25 seconds less.
Yeah, so yeah, it's a way of slowing the car, giving them a balance without it really unduly affecting the handling characteristics of the car. So it looks like already Swift is starting to back the grid up a little bit, just waiting for that car to peel in. So let's see whether or not he gambles on braking early or just holds them.
Yeah, he's got. I think it's the pace car actually that's bunched them up as they head through this final chicane section. So it's Swift in, there's the pace car. Swift in the black and blue car, then the bright orange car of Paddy McLuhan Road 2. It's another black and blue car, the black helmet of Terence Woodward, and the black, red and white car of Alain Costa. Then on row 3, you've got the white Spider of Jaap Bartels and Ozzy Youssef in the white SR8. Now they head through the final turn, and it is Swift who is bunching the field very nicely as they rumble along the start and finish straight, waiting for the lights atop the gantry to change, and then we'll be going racing for the first of 3 times this weekend, and away we go as the field bunch up in the shade underneath the grandstand, sprinting then back into the sunshine down towards turn 1. It's Swift who's got the advantage. It's a 3-way battle for second place, and it's Terence Woodward who is able to move clear into second. Costa takes third, and McLuhan gets shuffled to fourth. There's problems behind, and that's Ricardo Donor, I believe, who's gone around. Also Marcello Maritiotto, possibly so too, of the foremost. It's not Maritiotto, it's another of the black cars, maybe John Corbett then. So 2 of the front runners, certainly as the race was going to unfold, getting into a little bit of trouble.
Yeah, the mid-pack of the SR3s there scattered, and Peter Belshaw did a very good job to stay clear of that action out to the left as well. But good start by James Swift there. He broke early and managed to take an easy lead into the advantage, as it looks like McLuhan's just managed to regain the place there back up to third. Yeah,
so it is unfortunately Ricardo Donor and John Corbett who were the 2 who got tangled up. Meanwhile, McLuhan, now he's getting a bit of heat into his tyres, already starting to ask all the right questions. Terence Woodward was quite slow coming out of the corner, and in fact that's given Alain Costa the chance to slip back past McLuhan as McLuhan was looking to gain ground. Now head out of turn 9 down into this heavy braking zone for turn 10. This is one of the prime opportunities on the circuit to gain a little bit of ground. But Costa covers the inside line as Woodward makes an uncharacteristic
Briefly
error.
outbreaks himself there, and that allows McLuhan to get back through and once again take that third.
So it's Alan Costa now who goes up into second place. It is McLuhan into third. So Terence Woodward down to fourth. Was a use of lurking with intent in fifth, but all of this is exactly what James Swift would have wanted, which is the opportunity to ease away in these early stages of the race.
Yeah, and Andrew Ferguson doing a very good job here as well. He's hanging right close onto the coattails of Bartels, so could be a really good race for him as well.
Certainly could be, as Swift turns into the opening complex once more. We've got one car that is struggling we've got a car that's stopped out at turn 4 on the circuit. I think it's possibly one, if not both, of the Caldwells, which is a great shame. As they head into turn 4 now. Yes, there we go.
Yes, there we go. It looks like it's John there. So we just see a replay here of the contact there. Yes, it was between Corbett and Ricardo Dona.
Yeah, so that was Nicky Thump for the Jack White racing car of John Corbett, because Dona was going for a gap which was closing, and Corbett fortunately spinning away from the path, and it was the Caldwells tangling with each other. Oh dear. And so it is John Caldwell who has come off worse from that. He remains beached in the gravel trap.
Yeah, that's going to be a difficult dinner table conversation tonight, I'm sure. But back to the front of there, and just a brief look up there by McLuhan as he entered the corner there, but looks to be back and straight, and looks like the gap's just started to go a little bit out to the front there. Now Swift with a 2-second advantage over Shear and McLuhan.
Fortunately, Brian Caldwell is also in trouble. His car is in the pits directly opposite our commentary position, as we are currently watching the fight for second, third and fourth. There is fifth place for the Youssef, sixth the first of the Spiders, Jaap Bartels, and then well up in seventh, heading the Supersport class, is Marcello Maracciotto, but he has got former British GT champion Bradley Ellis beginning to loom very large onto his tail. And again, for Ellis, he has got 10 seconds less in the pits than Maracciotto when they do go through the pit window, so that could have an interesting bearing. There is Andrew Ferguson. He is currently splitting the two Supersport leaders as Ellis eases past Ferguson, and then next along, that is Pete Belshaw. It's raced a lot in radical racing in the UK. Now this is a little bit frustrating for both Ellis and Ferguson, because Bradley Ellis is much quicker through the corners than Andrew Ferguson, but Ferguson is so rapid along any straight of note that he's getting straight back past Ellis. Yeah,
real cat and mouse game here, and you can see the respective strength of the SR3 and the Spider. Of course, the 3 is a lot lighter and a really nimble car. The 8 takes a little bit longer to turn and get in a straight line, but so much more grunt in a straight line.
So this is the second place car in the Supersport class of Bradley Ellis. He is trying to reel in Marcello Maracciotto as they climb up to not quite the highest point of the circuit before swooping downhill. And Jaap Bartels is their target. Pete Belshaw joining that queue. Front of the field.
Ellis not really reeling in Maracciotto at the moment. They're roughly equal in the splits at the moment, which will be deeply frustrating, I'm sure, for this former GT champion.
The only thing to say, of course, is that Bradley Ellis has got 10 seconds fewer of success seconds, and we can anticipate that Maracciotto will be in reasonably early in the pit window to hand over to Marco Cencetti, who put the car on pole for the Supersport class in this race. So Ellis will know that if he holds his patience, he will get some clear air.
He does indeed, although of course that's going to make the job a lot harder for Andy Cummings, who Bradley will be handing over to when he goes up against Cencetti, who of course has really been so quick all this season. Cencetti is one of the real stars of SR3 racing in recent years, and yeah, a real formidable racer.
So here comes the fight for the lead of the Supersport class back into the first corner. Again, Andrew Ferguson closing right up braking zone and sweep through this opening complex, then into the long and swooping turn 3. Really challenging corner, because we've got a problem there for onto their tail as they hit the braking zone and sweep through this opening complex, then into the long and swooping turn 3. Really challenging corner because we've got a problem there for McLuhan, who goes around, and Paddy McLuhan has spun. Has he stalled it? He was in 3rd place, and he is perched right in the middle of the road at turn 4 as Maritiotto and Ellis arrive on the scene, as does Andrew Ferguson. Pete Belshaw goes the other side.
Yeah, quite a precarious place to be stopped there, and of course, because it's so difficult to get going again, that's really going to hurt his chances in this race.
Certainly is. He and Victor Crair couldn't get any luck to go their way in Monza, and unfortunately is beginning to look that way now. The good news is that McLuhan is back and up and running. The badly it is beginning to look that way now. The good news is that McLuhan is back and up and running. The bad news is that he's going to be down in something like 14th place, most likely. Here is the race leader, James Swift, who is not exactly romping off into the distance here, clear of Alain Costa.
No, at the moment Shear's keeping him. I think it's Shear actually, isn't it, rather than Costa. But yeah, Shear seems to be keeping him honest. 1.9 second gap, so that's closed up again a little bit in the last lap. And at the moment, Shear's just 2/10 off on Swift, as we just see a replay there. Yeah, running wide out onto the gravel, and the rear end just swaps ends.
We'll unpick the mystery of who's in that car, because on the grid it was a helmet saying A Costa. So unless they're sharing helmets, we will nonetheless, if it's Alain Costa or Johan Shear, they are, whoever is behind the wheel, going extremely well. And again, in terms of success seconds, they have got that very much in their favour. Meanwhile,
oh, big late break there, and a bit of a tank slapper for James Abbott fighting his way back up, but just about made it stick and was able to overtake Corbett in the process.
That's the fight for 10th, 11th and 12th, as we are 8 minutes in. We are on the 5th lap of the race. This is a great performance from the number 20 car, which has been strong all season long. It just seems that Alain Costa and the team, and now Johan Shear, have got that car hooked up really nicely. Yeah,
and Costa in strong contention for the Fangio Cup title as well. So yeah, it'll be great to see the Monegasque driver take a title this year. He's been there or thereabouts, and just increasing a really very capable amateur driver now.
So the gap from 1st to 2nd, 2.3 seconds, but given that James Swift really he's going to be in the pits for 35 seconds longer than the car just behind him, and he's only leading by 2.3 seconds, so that is not enough for James Swift. But of course, these drivers have to start thinking about the long game a little bit, the way that sometimes the success seconds are going to work out over the course of the 3 races of the weekend, and actually how many of those races you can therefore really be in contention with for the victory. So across the line and completing lap 5, 1st to 2nd, 2.4 seconds. Then the gap back to Terence Woodward. He is about 9.5 seconds off the lead. And for Woodward and Ross Kaiser, really they just want to consistently rack up the points over these 3 races.
Yeah, that's right. Make no mistakes and keep things. If they can stay out of trouble, I'm sure that Terence won't be too disappointed or too upset by the fact that he's got clean air between him, both at front and behind. If he can stay out of trouble and get a solid result and stay on the podium here, of course, we're getting into that stage this final round as well, that maybe these guys just want to sacrifice a couple of places. He'll be quite content to take 3rd on the grid, because it'll mean he'll have less success seconds for the second and final race of the weekend. So yeah, I'm sure he'll be quite pleased with where he is at the moment, and the team will just be keeping him calm.
So Terence Woodward there in 3rd place, and just
seeing a replay here. Is this an overtake of Donor on the twin Swedish car of Jonsson and Enqvist? Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, good pass made there. So that's the Enqvist car, by the way. That's a Radical Swedish Cup winner, Marcus Jonsson, who's out here for the first time in Europe, and he's joined by another one of the stars of the Swedish Championship in Henning Enqvist.
So that was Andrew Ferguson trying to jump Maritiotto and Ellis into turn 1. Didn't quite work out, but it has potentially opened up the door for Bradley Ellis to really start challenging Marcello Maritiotto. So here we go towards the end of another lap. And James Swift, has he opened up a little bit more on this occasion? Across the line he comes and posts a 1 minute 47.594. Again, it's a couple of tenths of a second quicker And again, the lead goes out, so it's just over 2.5 seconds. Goes out by almost a second over Terence Woodward.
Now, Swift's best chance in this race really is if he can repeat the success that he had right back at the start of the season at Jerez. If he can, that fuel conserving strategy that he led the race and really managed his fuel very, very well, meant he could really manage as the traffic came back towards him at the end of the race. He did a great job to hold on and take the win without the need to refuel. And if he can repeat that here, he'll do a very good job, I think.
Well, you've just hit on a very interesting point, haven't you? Because it could be that James Swift has identified a lap time that he needs to run at in order to not have to refuel, and that's what he's sticking to.
Yeah, certainly the team we're testing here on within the Radical official test on Thursday, and then again yesterday, so they'll have a good handle on what that car's fuel consumption is.
And also, it's probably much the same as well for Terence Woodward, as they're getting into a little bit of the traffic. That is Brian Caldwell, who has emerged from the pits. But it's good to see Brian back out on the track and getting in some useful race mileage. Heading through this latter third of the circuit, which sort of runs in a stadium section underneath the gigantic grandstands that you can really see from several miles around as the track is set into the hillside. Into this little chicane and back into the pits for Brian Caldwell as the Costa Shear car continues in pursuit of James Swift, and Swift is running with metronomic consistency here. Every lap is a 1:47.5.
Yeah, just starting to eke out a small advantage now. That gap from Shear, a 2.8 second lead with Woodward a further 7 or 8 seconds or so behind. So this is really good. Again, this is something that James Swift is very, very good at. He's exceptionally good at consistent lap times and just managing the pace all the way through a race, irrespective of what else is happening behind him.
Yep. Meanwhile, James Abbott is going fantastically well in 6th place in the invitation class car and isn't quite the fastest driver on the track, but he has scythed his way through the field in the Supersport class. It's Marcello Maracciotto who leads it from Bradley Ellis and then Peter Belshaw. Belshaw has got Ricardo Dona starting to come up towards his tail. Dona recovering from that early race spin. And Ricardo's also got the very, very rapid Alex Capadia to take over from him for the second half of the race.
Yeah, and it looks like Corbett and McLuhan locked in a battle as well, which will be quite frustrating for McLuhan, I guess. But yeah, they're just 6/10 apart.
So here is the fight for the Supersport lead between Bradley Ellis and Marcello Maracciotto. It's the black car of Maracciotto to the fore of Bradley Ellis. Here is James Abbott, meanwhile, right up behind Jaap Bartels. This the fight for 5th and 6th place. So they climb out of turn 7A up towards turn 9 at the very summit of the hill, and then running downhill into the braking zone for turn 10. I suspect that James Abbott will look one side or the other to get past Jaap Bartels, and Bartels decides not to fight it and just slots back into line before they get into the braking zone. Because of course, playing the long game here, James Abbott is in the invitation class car. Jaap Bartels is in the Masters Championship, and he and Stuart Mosley will want the points. So the pair of them running in tandem. We are almost at 1/4 race distance. James Swift leads the way from Johan Shear, then Terence Woodward, Ozzy Yusuf. This is the fight for 5th and 6th between Abbott and Bartels. Then in 7th place in the Supersport class, it's Marcello Maracciotto from Bradley Ellis. Now, the interesting tactical dimensioners coming at side by side to the final turn. And this is Maracciotto. Maracciotto squeezed wide onto the AstroTurf, and Bradley Ellis able to punch his way through and gain the place. But Maracciotto
coming right back at him, isn't he? Yeah, running side by side.
Oh, Senna and Mansell 91 all over again as they get on the brakes into turn 1. And Maracciotto isn't having it. He reclaims the lead, but only momentarily. He then tries to fight back, and now Bradley Ellis gets past.
Yeah, so that was really pushed right out wide. No option other than to run out onto the AstroTurf there in the final corner, and a little bit extra straight line pace there from the slightly new RSX, but ultimately couldn't quite make it stick.
Well, that I was about to say that tactically, here we have another look at the move. Ellis goes for the gap. Maracciotto, no shortage of commitment, tries to hang on around the outside, keeps the right foot firmly planted and then trying to squeeze Ellis into turn one.
Yeah, very, very impressive commitment there, and again into the first corner, but unfortunately ran out of room, and Ellis says, thank you very much, I'll take that.
Meanwhile, Ricardo Donat was able to make a not dissimilar move on Peter Belshaw. That was for 12th place, and crucially, the 3rd spot on the Supersport podium. To the end of the 9th lap of the race, James Swift, his lead remains at around about 2.5 seconds, and that was a slightly slower lap from Swift last time through, 1 minute 47.9, so he may have just had a little bit of a mistake somewhere, or possibly the team have just said, if you can ease off by a couple of tenths of a second, that might help things along.
Yeah, but really very little in it at the moment. I mean, these two drivers, identical final sector times and near identical first sector times. Yeah, there really is nothing between the relative paces of these drivers.
James Swift just running downhill, and one of the very nice things as well about this weekend is we've not got the winds, which can really sometimes make the circuit very tricky. It's a beautifully still day, as now McLuhan and Corbett. We picked out this battle was taking place a few moments ago as Paddy McLuhan looks to the inside of John Corbett into turn one, but he doesn't quite commit to the move.
Doesn't look like he's got quite the same confidence on the brakes, does he, as the Australian racer Corbett, who's sharing that SR8 this weekend with a real star of Asian and Australians. Oh, and another big wide slide there. He certainly won't want to be doing that.
I just wonder if he's got a little bit of a soft brake pedal, because we've seen him running wide on a couple of occasions. And he's maybe just struggling to slow the car quite as confidently as he'd like to. Yeah, and as you were saying, it's James Winslow who's going to take over from John Corbett for the second phase of this race. It's Victor Correa who will take over from Paddy McLuhan.
Another replay of this. Yeah, as you say, it looks like he just again outbraked himself, or certainly did, wasn't getting the full effect that he wanted, and had to make some corrective action.
Well, Paddy McLuhan, he stepped up from racing the SR3 in the UK, and I just wonder as well, Will, if it's because he made his debut at Monza, which is heavy braking zones, but not that many mid-speed corners, and here he's really having to understand the aerodynamics of the SR8 a little bit more, and that's possibly what's cost him out.
Made a dive out early there, but braked a lot earlier than Corbett. But no, it is a very different handling car from the SR3. Yeah, the weight distribution of the car is very different. Obviously, it's another 120 kilograms heavier as well. It will feel different, particularly in the slower speed stuff, because the weight distribution of the SR8 is that little bit more rearward, so it takes a bit more time to. You've got to be, that little bit more patient. Whereas in the 3, you can really attack a lot harder on the exit of the corners.
And again, McLuhan, it's just catching him a little bit mid-corner, isn't it? It's as if he's asking questions of the aero that then doesn't quite deliver, and then he has to correct the car.
And the problem is as well, then you get into this sort of psychological battle with yourself and the car, where you start to overdrive, and the doubt starts to creep into your mind as to whether or not it feels right, and then your lap time suffers. So I think he just needs to sort of maybe regroup and just take a couple of laps to just calm the pace, and then have another attack at Corbett.
That said, Corbett running a little bit wide into turn 2, and McLuhan isn't really letting Corbett romp clear. It just depends at what point does he really get that confidence on the brakes to challenge the Australian. When they come past the pits this time round, they will see the pit lane open board, and that means that the following lap they'll be able, if they wish, to come in and make their mandatory pit stop, which is then going to be fascinating to see whether or not the SR8s do refuel. At Monza, it was a no-brainer that they'd refuel. We haven't had a safety car during this race, so they haven't had any opportunity to save fuel, as the pit window is now open. But the rules in Radical European Marseille, you have to go past the pit board saying pit lane open. As now McLuhan draws alongside Corbett. Is he going to be a bit more confident on the brakes on this occasion? He's certainly got the track position. Corbett does brake later, but McLuhan able to block out the Australian and make the move.
Yeah, again, he got that move lined up nice and early. As you could see, he needed to still be cautious on the brakes. He's obviously not comfortable, but did the right thing and got the track position crucially right.
I think, having watched McLuhan for a couple of laps now, we'll find out after the race, it's not so much the braking that's causing him the concern. I think he's just being caught out by where he's getting the aerodynamic grip and where he's not, and he's trying to rely on the mechanical grip a bit more. So they come out of the final turn, and is Corbett in the slipstream with the opportunity to challenge. This is the battle for 9th and 10th place. And McLuhan, provided he doesn't get it all wrong into turn 1, has been able to make that move stick on John Corbett and should begin to ease away. Sides through turn 1. His next target is Marcello Maritiotto, second of our Supersport runners behind Bradley Ellis. It's still James Swift who leads the way as again McLuhan runs out very, very wide at turn 3. The tail of the car kicks out on him, but he just powers through it.
Yeah, and that gap already closed from 2.6 down to 1.4 seconds, so he's reeling in the SR3s in front of him in fairly short order. But back to the front here again, Swift has set another fairly consistent lap in the 148s, but she is not far behind him.
Yeah, the pace of the race has rather dropped, hasn't it? From 1 minute 47.5s back to, that was a 1 minute 48.7, possibly a little bit of traffic.
Second and a half slower than his best so far.
I think they were indulging in some lap period, possibly Mark Hignett, that they were putting a lap on. But nonetheless, that was a much slower lap, as into the pit lane has come Terence Woodward. So our first mandatory pit stop is underway, and here it is, and they are refuelling. So taking no chances, Woodward and Kaiser. They clearly feel the numbers don't stack up, and they're going to put in a tank of fuel to make sure.
That's right, and we'll be handing over.
I think it'll need some tyre pressure taken out of a bit.
So again, some interesting words there from Woodward. Sounds like the car was moving around a little bit more than he'd like, and they just want to drop the tyre pressures there to make that car a little bit more stable.
So of course, just to explain, if you do put in fuel, you have to have an additional amount of time spent in the pits for safety reasons, and that's why this fuel calculation is absolutely critical for the SR8s, as Paddy McLuhan decides that enough's enough. He comes in, Victor Crair is waiting, and are we going to see fuel going in? Yes, we are. And suddenly what that does is begin to swing this race in favour of Jaap Bartels and Stuart Mosley and the Spider, because they will not have to refuel.
Yeah, absolutely, and Bartels is at the moment he's some 18 seconds or so adrift from Abbott, who's charging up, and I understand Abbott will be refueling in this race, but yeah, it's really looking good for them at the moment. Meanwhile, we see Ricciardo jumping out the car and handing over to Alex Capari, another stalwart of Radical Racing.
So this was the car that was running up inside the top 3 in the Supersport class, as our race leader James Swift is going to keep going, as is Johan Scheer in the number 20 car in second place, and the pair of them have remained within a couple of seconds of each other ever since the start of the race. Now, given that they have been well clear at the front of the field and the other SR8s have had to refuel, we would suspect that both cars will have to have a little bit of a top up. But James Swift, as you were referring to earlier on, Will, in Jerez worked miracles with the fuel economy.
Yeah, and I'm just looking down into the pit lane to see whether or not the team are preparing another load of fuel to go into that car of Swift's or not. No ideas yet, though. Looks like they're, if they make that decision, they're going to leave it till the last minute.
No, certainly not. Yeah, we're very fortunate here that our Country Box window directly overlooks the pit lane. What we can say, I think, is it would appear as if James Swift is probably going to be in on this lap. Meanwhile, we have also had the pit stop for John Corbett. That is to hand over to James Winslow. We are on currently the 14th lap of the race. We are 25 minutes in, got 35 minutes remaining, and here is our race leader James Swift turning up through turn 12. There is Marcello Maritiotto, who was second in the Supersport class, and he is going to give Marco Cencetti a good crack at Bradley Ellis and Andy Cummings, who are currently our Supersport leaders. Now, is Swift going to duck towards the pits? No, he's not. So, although the team were ready for him, he's going to do at least another lap. And of course, this is the beauty for James Swift of just being that solo driver. He can make the pit stop whenever he feels like it.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if we, at the pace at the moment, if this is Alan in the car, I can see him really just trying to mirror whatever Swift does, you know, and he'll look to pit when Swift does.
Now the pair of them are coming through turn 3. We've got a yellow flag over at turn 4, which is the area they're approaching now, and the reason for said yellow flag is not immediately apparent from that shot. both cars get through. Any particular problems? Out of turn 5, down towards turn 6. Here is the replay, and it is Victor Correa who's in trouble and straight through and crunches into the tyre wall. So a repeat almost to the moment for Paddy McLuhan, and that is a real shame for Victor Correa.
Yeah, as James Abbott out the car as the sticker dropped more fuel in that development. We see another replay of it here, and yeah, same corner, but really no real turn in there at all, and just ploughed straight on.
It's the same issue, isn't it? Just chronic understeer, which won't have been cured by parking the car in the tyre barrier.
Looks like a moment for Jack Bartels there as well, just drifting off circuit and allowing Ellis back through.
Yeah, so Bradley Ellis having the sort of performance which we would expect, but of course now Ellis is racing Marco Ciancetti, and so his opportunity to have really opened up some ground has possibly eked away. Now don't forget, James Swift has got potentially a very, very lengthy pit stop here with the success seconds, but neither he nor Shear decide to pit in. So across the line they come, and that is complete lap 15. The gap from first second comes down a little bit, down to 1.8 seconds, but I get a feeling that the Johan Shear or Alain Costa, whoever's in that car, I don't think they're going to risk that move on James Swift.
Yeah, we're seeing as a result pit stop machinations, of course, that Belshaw and Johnson are up to 6th and 7th respectively now.
Now that could be really crucial, because James Swift catches Ollie Hancock to put the lap on him just into that yellow flag zone, and that is going to give second place car the opportunity to really close the gap back down. And for the first time, there are only now a handful of car lengths between first and second.
Yeah, and, just balked for a second there, and obviously no overtaking under the yellows, which you know, would have hurt him a little bit, but it looks like she is now through. But yeah, that gap is noticeably closer than it has been on previous laps.
And that also rather emphatically confirms that out of the race is Victor Correa. So the order is currently Swift from Shear, that's the battle we're watching, first and second place. Third is Ozzy Yusuf. Fourth in the Supersport class is Bradley Ellis. And then in fifth, but now in the pits, is Jack Bartels. That is to hand over to the very rapid Stuart Mosley. So we will await with interest Mosley's progress. Here is the pit stop, as out of the car is Bartels. Mosley about to jump in. There's yet no sign that the leading duo are going to pit in.
And Shear fastest on that last lap as well, so looks like he's just starting to turn the wick up a little bit on Swift.
Yeah, the gap from first second goes down to fractionally over a second. James Swift losing a fair amount of time, of course, with that lappery of Ollie Hancock last time through. Nothing really that either Hancock nor Swift could do about it. They just caught each other coming up towards the yellow flag. Through turn 3, James Swift has the car doing exactly what he wants it to. The number 20 car may be looking a little bit more settled in second place, actually, not sliding at all, whereas Swift is just beginning to get a little bit of movement from the tail of his car.
Yeah, certainly there's more movement than we've seen from him in previous races. He's really been one of the sort of key exponents of a really smooth driving style and minimal steering input. With these cars, ultimately the fastest way to go, and particularly with the 8s in terms of tyre conservation, you've got to let the car do the work and just keep it pointing in as straight line as you possibly can.
And this Catalunya circuit has always been a notoriously tough circuit on tyres. Just so many mid-speed, long radius corners that really puts through the lateral pressure. On the brakes and climbing uphill out of turn 10 into 11 and then on to turn 12. Looking down to the pit lane. If James Swift comes in on this occasion, it's going to catch everybody by surprise. They're not waiting for him.
As we see Peter Belshaw coming into the pits now, just below the commentary box here, but no, it looks like he's stayed out for another lap. So with half the race gone, it's still the same status quo as we saw at the start of the race.
Meanwhile, in the battle for Supersport honours, Bradley Ellis last time through was 0.2 of a second quicker than Marco Ciancetti. So that is a battle to keep tabs on. the progress of Stuart Mosley is also going to be worth monitoring in the Spider, particularly as through that pit cycle he is out, as we believe, just behind Ross Kaiser. But we'll look to keep an eye on that one, because of course Kaiser and Woodward did refuel.
Yeah, although if you look at Kaiser's lap times at the moment, lapping in the 1:49, so he's still some way off the pace of Swift and Shear out at the front. You know, even if they come into contention, that last lap there a 48.9, so a little faster, but still some second adrift.
I don't think Ross Kaiser necessarily really relish pushing the car. A podium finish for he and Terence Woodward would do nicely. It's a little bit more traffic to contend with. That is Marcus Johnson, who is again one of 5 drivers not yet to have made his pit stop. Johnson just moving right to the edge of the circuit, allows the second place car to complete the lappery. We are on the 18th lap of the race, the first of 3 races this weekend in the Radical European Masters here, Circuit Catalunya. Just 27 minutes remaining. Just being careful not to ride the curbs too hard is James Swift. Clearly, he is going to wait until the very tail end of the pit window to pit in. Also, Ozzy Yusuf, who's now up into 3rd place, another of the single driver entries, also yet to make his pit stop, as not unsurprisingly is Bradley Ellis, the Supersport leader, in 4th.
The interesting thing here, of course, is that all these drivers, in terms of the 2 driver pairings, will have made their declarations in secret. So it's effectively a secret ballot when you place your declaration earlier in the day. You see now this is Johnson handing over to Enquist. But so none of these drivers knew before the starting drivers were declared who would be in which. So I'm sure if this is Costa, then what Swift will be doing really is seeing if he can break him and go the full distance all the way to the final opportunity to pit.
But at the moment, it is not looking as if he's having any success in breaking his rival. James Swift, the race leader, probably should be nicknamed the Pizza Express, shouldn't he? As he's right clear at the front of the field from Shearer or Costa. We'll unpick through the pit stops exactly who it is who's been in the car for the first half of the race. Whoever it is who's been very impressive. Now, looking down to the pits, I think we're going to see one of these cars in on this occasion. The question is going to be whether or not it's going to be Swift.
Yeah, just 3 cars left to pit now with Yusuf entering the pit a few moments ago. So it's just this leading pair and the SR3 lead SR3 of Bradley Ellis as well.
I think that we're going to be seeing some refuelling here from the 360 Racing team for James Swift, who ducks into the pit lane now. So Swift is in, and he is going to get a top up of fuel, unless the team are really working through an elaborate ploy. Swift gets the car down to the pit lane speed limit, rolls along and comes to a stop. The car gets earthed, Swift gets out, and their fuel goes in. I think that if James Swift needs to refuel, that shows that all the SR8s will need a top up.
Yes, that's right. So steps away for a breather while these guys, not a huge amount going in there though. It looks about half a dump churn, so that's somewhere in the region of 10-12 litres.
So we've got 2 cars left to pit in. Bradley Ellis, who will probably pit at the very last possible moment, and then the car being shared between Johan Scheer and Alain Costa. And what I've really liked about seeing this car in action this year is that Alain's performances have been excellent, but also they just seem to have found a sweet spot with the setup. And every circuit, it just looks so stable.
Yeah, that's right. He's really got the confidence to push on. You just saw there through that confidence. Yeah, that was small little overcorrection, but really the car's excellently planted. The turn-in's just superb. So yeah, the Radical France team working really well this season with that car, and he's done a great job. Instead, he's a solo driver that's developed all the way through the year, and just got faster and faster. Certainly a massive leap forward this winter, this year compared with previous seasons, and it's just come good for him.
Of those that have pitted, Not sure where Ozzy Yusuf is going to feed out into it, but I think it's Yusuf who is clear of Kaiser, and then Mosley. Now that is as into the pit lane now comes the race leader. Now what's been interesting here is that Stuart Mosley in the Spider hasn't been able to jump some of the SR8s, even with the additional time in the pits that the SR8s have had to spend refuelling.
Yeah, and his last lap time, 1:51. So he's still some way off the pace of the lead guys.
So the leading car rolls to a halt in the pits, is going to be topped up with fuel, we can see, and the comment I was making about the drivers sharing helmets is indeed true, as we watch from the commentary box. So yes, it was Alain Costa's helmet, and it's now Alain himself who's getting into the car. So it was Johann Scheer. So that would explain some of the slight confusion. Well, it's one thing to share a car, it's quite another to share a helmet, which I'd imagine is probably going to feel quite sticky and sweaty for Alain Costa as he gets strapped in. So here is Ross Kaiser, and Kaiser has essentially now got himself back onto the lead lap. He's racing the static car of now Alain Costa that is in the pit lane. So it was Johann Scheer who was going very well in the opening phase of the race. And Kaiser is 5.5 seconds behind Ozzy Yusuf, who, when all is said and done, is most likely going to be into second place, with Kaiser trying to chase him down late on.
Yeah, and Yusuf in quite a good position because he had a short pit stop there. So yeah, this is really advantaged him, and he's of course one of the lead GT4 stars in British GT in his Lotus, and he's made a really good transition into radical racing in the last couple of seasons.
Now, this is a replay of James Winslow and Alex Capadia.
I think, or is it Cenchetti actually? I think
it could be Cenchetti. Yes, you're right. Good spot, Will. It is Marco Cenchetti and Capadia. Now, they are fighting over what will be second place in the Supersport class as Alain Costa heads out of the pit lane now. And for my money, that is going to put Costa into the lead of the race.
I think it is. Have we seen? Yeah, Ellis is. Yeah, Ellis is yet to pit, isn't he? But yeah, it's certainly in terms of all those that have pitted. There's no sign of Yusuf yet. So
Alain Costa heads through turn 3. Across the line now has come Ozzy Yusuf. Yeah. So we'll find out at the next intermediate what the interval is, and this is a very defensible buffer for Alain Costa in the latter phases of this race. Here is Ross Kaiser, who is the upwardly mobile driver. He is only 3 seconds behind Ozzy Yusuf, but he is a couple of seconds lap quicker than Yusuf. So he's really elevating his pace. And then in 4th, it's going to be Stuart Mosley. 5th, James Abbott. And then 6th, Marco Cenchetti from Alex Capadia. And James Swift has had an extraordinarily long pit stop. And our timing screen suggests that James Swift is still in the pit lane. Not entirely convinced by that, unless the car has been in trouble further down the pit lane. But nonetheless, he has dropped right to the tail of our timing screens. And that is a great pity for James Swift. He pulled away from the pit box okay, but he would appear not to have emerged from the pit lane.
Yeah, that's right, and likewise for Belshaw as well. It looks like he's just trickling down the pit lane now and back to the garages. That's a real shame as well for him.
So here is the battle for 2nd and 3rd place between Alex Capadia and Ozzy Yusuf. This battle taking place 25.9 seconds back from Alain Costa. Bradley Ellis will have to come into the pits on this occasion as the pit window has closed. Ozzy Yusuf, who started out his career competing mainly in Lotus cars, and now making this transition across to prototype sports car racing, and making a very fine switch at 2. But he has got Kaiser bearing down his tail. Now there's a question for Ross Kaiser, which is, does he risk the car for those points for second place, or does he maybe have to content himself with holding station for 3rd?
Yes, there's a fairly comfortable buffer here now for Costa, just doing the So a good 26-second advantage over Youssef. So, and I would think that those drivers are a fairly equal pace. But if Kaiser can be held up by Youssef for just a couple of laps here, this is going to look very, very good for the Radical France pair in here, number 20.
It certainly will do. So Johann Scheer in the first half of the race.
As finally Ellis does indeed peel into the pits and hands over to Cummings.
And Costa just on the brakes into turn 10 on his 22nd lap. As soon as he comes over the start and finish line, that will give him the lead of the race back from Bradley Ellis, who is static in the pit lane. Alan Costa is going to be leading. Yeah, he's 25 seconds up from Youssef. That has eroded a little bit through the opening couple of sectors on this lap. Here is Youssef. He's being prodded along by Ross Kaiser. Now, there's certainly a question here for Kaiser and Youssef, which is, do they actually work together for a few laps, see if they can start to worry Alain Costa, or does Ross Kaiser just try and clear Aussie Youssef as quickly as he can? Yeah,
that's right. If Youssef's defending from Kaiser and trying to trip him up, obviously that's going to be detriment to both of their pace. So, yeah, I think Kaiser needs to be smart here, and he needs to make an early move, and then he's either going to make a bold move here to get past Youssef and then try and close up the gap, or alternatively he needs to back off, give himself a bit of space, and hopefully that'll encourage Youssef to push on and catch up this double train all the way to the back of Costa.
22.6 seconds, the gap between the pair of them at the end of the 22nd lap of the race. Thank you very much for joining us here in Barcelona this weekend for the season finals of the Radical European Masters. This is the first of 3 races, and it has been a very entertaining one so far. Alain Costa is our race leader. Second place is Aussie Youssef. Third is Ross Kaiser. We're watching the battle between Youssef and Kaiser at the moment. In fourth, it's possibly going to be Stuart Mosley or Bradley. I think it's Andy Cummings, in fact, in fourth, our Supersport leader. Then it's Stuart Mosley from James Abbott. Marco Cenchetti is in 7th. He's 2nd in Supersport class. Franz Capadia in 8th, who's 3rd in the Supersport class.
So at the moment we're looking, I would say, somewhere in the region, maybe 13, 14 laps of the race remaining, with a lapping difference of around 3 seconds a lap on that last lap. Yeah, certainly Costa is catchable by this pair, certainly on their current pace.
So 16.5 minutes as Kaiser looks to the inside of Aussie Youssef, and Ross Kaiser's going to go for it and darts the inside of Aussie Youssef, takes 2nd place. Great move, Ross Kaiser, but Youssef has decided he rather wants 2nd place back. Looks to the inside of Kaiser, but that is not happening, and so Ross Kaiser moves in 2nd. Now this is the moment where Alain Costa starts to get a little bit more anxious. They've got time for 8 or so more laps. Probably 9 laps, in fact.
Yeah, last lap for Costa 1:52.1. We'll just get an idea in a second as we see a replay again of Kaiser's overtake on Youssef there. Smart
driving really by Youssef. He knew not to fight it too much, but it now releases Ross Kaiser, who even with that overtaking was still 2.2 seconds quicker than Alain Costa. 20.899 seconds is the gap from 1st to 2nd, and now as we head into the final quarter it really starts to come alive. And this is what I love about the latter stage of these Radical European Masters races, is when you get these chase situations, particularly like this one where it is really quite touch and go.
Yeah, that's right. And yeah, I mean, even looking further down the grid as well, you've got Abbott and Cenchetti there still lapping considerably quicker than the 2 cars ahead of them in Cummings and Mosley. So there's going to be another fight for sort of the mid-pack honours a little bit further down the grid, I'm sure.
I'm not sure that all as it should be for Stuart Mosley today, because he's lapping in the 1:54 second brackets, which is uncharacteristically off the pace for Stuart. He and Yap are generally a good couple of seconds lap quicker than that. And here is James Abbott, in fact, doing battle with Stuart Mosley. This is the battle for 5th and 6th position. Through turn 3, James Abbott crawling right onto the tail of Mosley, who I think is going to have to concede this on the brakes towards turn 4. Nothing that Mosley can do to shut the door in time. We'll possibly look to try and fight back heading towards turn 5. James Abbott, though, just moving out, using all the road that he needs to, and therefore the door does not open for Stuart Mosley as pair of them head downhill, climb up through turn 7 and 8 on towards the very quick right-hander at turn 9. Meanwhile, Alan Costa and Ross Kaiser just come past our commentary box, and it's 17 seconds between them, 14 minutes remaining.
Yeah, and Kaiser's upped his pace as well now, lapping in the 48.3. So, yeah, good nearly 4 seconds a lap faster than Costa. So it's only going to take a couple of laps, before he's going to be right on the tail of the Monegasque.
Yeah, Alan Costa really, if he can find another second a lap, that might just buy him enough. So we've only got 13 and a half minutes remaining. So the race order is Alan Costa from Ross Kaiser, then Ozzy Youssef in 4th place. It is Andy Cummings. He leads the Supersport class from in 5th. James Abbott 6th is the man we're watching, Stuart Mosley. 7th is Marco Cenchetti, 2nd in the Supersport class from 3rd in the Supersport class. Alex Capadia in 8th. 9th is James Winslow. And in 10th place, we have got Henning Enquist. Headlights ablaze for James Abbott. Not sure he really needs those in the sunshine.
Yeah, and it's a glorious day here, isn't it? As you say, there's unusually for a race here at Catalunya, there's next to no wind. So, yeah, it'll be a really, really fantastic day out there. I'm sure, though, the tyres are taking a real pounding in this sunshine.
And now, James Abbott straight on to turns with Andy Cummings. I can't imagine that Andy is going to make it too hard for James to pick his way past. But then James Abbott is a good 40 seconds behind Ozzy Youssef. So this is about as far as James in the black and gold number 74 car is going to climb. Meanwhile, here is our race leader Alan Costa, 1 minute 52.1. We're waiting for Ross Kaiser to come past us, which he does now. 13.2 seconds. Another mid 1 minute 48 second lap for Kaiser. For Alan Costa, 1 minute 52.1. Yeah, 3.6 seconds a lap that he's giving away is just a little bit too much, isn't it?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. But no, it's still a fantastic job by Costa here, and he just needs to keep his head. I think that's the main thing now. Even if he's aware of that diminishing gap between them, if he can keep on a steady pace, he might still be in luck with the catching traffic and the SR3s in the mid pack that he has to pass. So this is still looking good for a podium, and I think that will also cement his Fangio Cup title as well. Now
the other dynamic of this, of course, is do Ross Kaiser and Terence Woodward really want the additional success seconds that are going to come from victory, or will they say, actually, no, these are points in the bag, let's just get the points, and then worry about the rest of the weekend?
This is Cenchetti attacking Mosley now, and maybe looking for a pass, but of course, a straight line of the much similar to the what we saw earlier in the race.
Yeah, now what's really interesting here as well is that Marco Cenchetti is all the while reeling in Andy Cummings very, very quick. There's only 4 seconds now between Cenchetti and Cummings. This is the fight for 5th in the race overall. And Stuart Mosley is caught in the slightly unenviable position behind a little SR3 buzzing to the inside of him coming through turn 3. Amazing traction for Cenchetti, who's then got the inside line on the brakes for turn 4.
Yeah, you saw that then, a real confidence in the lateral grip of the little SR3 to hang around the inside there and take the title line.
And also, really quite worryingly for Andy Cummings and Bradley Ellis, they were in the pits for 10 seconds less than Cenchetti Maracchiotto, but Marco Cenchetti has already driven away that success penalty.
Yeah, nearly 5 seconds a lap difference between the pair of the drivers, and just 7.5 between them at the moment. So yeah, this is going to be within the next couple of laps that this battle comes together for the class lead.
And the other car that's looking to join in here is James Winslow. He is looming there on the tail of Stuart Mosley in the black car, the Jack White Racing entry. Team sadly not staying in the Hotel Yorba this weekend as they head through turn 12 in the battle for 7th and 8th place, and that's going to be the move, surely. Oh, not quite. It's great to see a driver of James Winslow's calibre competing in the Radical European Masters this weekend, as he, Ollie Hancock and Alex Capadia have all got a very busy week ahead of them. They're off to Sepang to compete in an Asian sports car competition next weekend as Cenchetti looks to line up the move on Andy Cummings, and this is for the Supersport lead, and Cenchetti surges past as does James Winslow at the back of the picture, so it's all change in this fight for 5th.
Yeah, that's right, and Winslow's soon going to be on the tail, so I can see that just within a couple of laps, Cummings is going to lose 2 places here.
Through turn 3, they are, for James Winslow, will get past Andy Cummings, possibly even on the brakes for turn 4. Not quite. Andy moves across, covers the racing line. This is a battle, of course, for race position, so Andy Cummings has got every right to defend as hard as he wants to, but Winslow glides past into turn 5, so that is now 6th place for James Winslow. At the front of the field, by the way, Ross Kaiser now just 7.1 seconds back from Alain Costa with 8.5 minutes remaining. Costa has elevated his pace by a second or so per lap over the last lap. He's now in the mid 1 minute 58 second bracket.
Yeah, Cummings is going to have to be careful as well here. I've just seen that Capadia is recovering back through the field now, so he's
He's only about 7 seconds back.
Adrift, that's right, with around 3 laps still to go, and he's lapping some 2.5 seconds a lap faster. So, yeah, this could be another little bit of late heartache for Cummings with Capadia coming back through the ranks.
Yeah, and particularly significant as well for Supersport Championship points.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, Capadia sharing that car with Ricardo Donner, who's been in the car for the whole season.
But also it's an additional bonus for Cenchetti and Maratiotto. So plenty to ponder as we head into the final 7 3/4 minutes. This is the end of lap 27 for this group of cars. And James Winslow along the start and finish straight in the tow behind Cenchetti. The SR8 pulls out, moves around the SR3. Cenchetti has no need to fight that as Winslow moves up into 5th position. Cenchetti slips to 6th but continues to lead the Supersport class.
Now, interestingly, all the while at the front end of this battle, Costas has upped the pace slightly and is now lapping in the mid 151s. So, although the gap's reduced, it's now 5.3 seconds to Kaiser. So, it looks like that charge of cars has been slowed a little. The question is whether or not he can make it work in the last couple of laps.
Meanwhile, you just caught a glimpse behind Andy Cummings of Alex Capadia closing up, and they're both swarming on the tail of Stuart Mosley. There is Mosley in 7th place, Cummings in 8th, and then in 9th place is Capadia. But that's crucial because Cummings and Capadia battling for that fight, the last 2 spots on the Supersport podium. Meanwhile, the leaders, when they came past us, just 3.7 seconds between Costa and Kaiser. That may well change over the course of this coming lap. In the battle at the front of the field, as Capadia comes right up onto terms with Andy Cummings. Now this is the point at which Cummings probably needs to get his elbows out and really try and keep Capadia behind him if he possibly can. It's going to be no mean feat for Andy to do that. Capadia, one of the very quickest in the business. Looks to the high line, might try and duck to the inside.
Yeah, and of course what's got to be careful as well is that Cummings is going to be well aware of that that slightly slower Spider in front of him. But nice, neat and tidy line through the chicane there and into the first corner.
So through the final turn, and Capadia right underneath the rear spoiler of Andy Cummings. He bursts out of the bubble, draws alongside, and is going to have gained the place well before turn 1. Although Capadia now punching the hole through the air, he just keeps consulting his mirrors. He's clear and can move back across. Here is the fight at the front of the field. This is the battle for the lead of the race. And Ross Kaiser, it's taken him a few laps to catch Costa, who runs wide at the chicane. And into the lead goes Ross Kaiser. He forced the mistake from Alain Costa, really at the point at which he caught him. And there was nothing that the Monegasque could do to hold on. So it is Ross Kaiser who leads the race. We head into the final 5 minutes. So we have got just 3 laps remaining. Kaiser leads, Costa is second, a very secure second, 11.4 seconds up on Ozzy Yusuf. So just caught in the background, Ollie Hancock moving clear of Henning Engqvist. That is the fight for 10th and 11th place. Here's another look at the move, the lead then. Costa defending into the chicane, realised he couldn't get the car slowed enough understeered out wide.
Yeah, run really deep in there, and obviously he was compromised on the exit by the sheer fact that the car of Kaiser was where he wanted to be, and he had to back out. So, yeah, a neat bit of driving there by Kaiser to position him in the perfect place for the exit.
Nonetheless, Alain Costa and Johann Scheer are well on course for an excellent second place finish. For Ross Kaiser and Terence Woodward, again, they have just managed the strategy of this race absolutely perfectly. Woodward in that secure, not distant, but at the same time comfortable third place in the first phase of the race, and it just opened the door to Ross Kaiser to really push on in the latter stages.
Yeah, I mean, what is clear, of course, that the 360 Racing team has taken absolutely no prisoners here, and they won every point that they possibly can, and you can see a good reason for that. If the points are there on the table, then why not take them? There's no point sort of holding back and waiting to see what will happen in the later races.
Although a mixed race for them, because James Swift not emerging from his pit stop, and that was a great pity for our early race leader, as heading through to embark on his penultimate lap of the race is our race leader Ross Kaiser. Here is Aussie Yusuf, as we have got a car off at turn 3 according to our timing screen. Here is Yusuf in pursuit of Alain Costa, and Costa is, I think, safe. Yeah, 9 seconds. There it is James Abbott, in fact, who's gone off at turn 3 and is moving out in the cockpit. I don't think he's going to fire it up from there. That's what the marshal is telling him.
Yeah, it looks like Yusuf is... Yeah, Costa's fairly comfortable. He's got a 13.3 second advantage, and although he's lapping some 2 seconds slower than Yusuf, I can't see that really reducing too much before the checkered flag. No,
Even at 2 seconds a lap, with 2 laps to go, Yusuf will be nearer, but he won't be near enough. Ross Kaiser, all the while, though, building the advantage on Alain Costa. Here is Kaiser. Climbs out of turn 8 on towards turn 9. Was one of the most intimidating points on this circuit. And then downhill towards the braking zone at turn 10. That then brings him into the stadium loop, which concludes the lap. We have... or just about at the point where there is less than a lap time left in the race, which means that Ross Kaiser will be starting his 32nd and final lap very, very shortly. Just on the brakes, snicks down through the gears. You can see he's not really had to push the car any more than absolutely necessary. It's still not moving around as Kaiser heads through the final turn, picks up the throttle, and will be informed, doubtless by his pit board, that he has started the last lap of the race.
And I think this shows as well what a great job that Woodward did in the first half of the race there to really maintain a good pace and keep his nose clean through the first half and hand over a really good, well-sorted car with plenty of tyres left on that for Kaiser to attack in the final stages.
Meanwhile, in the Supersport class, that's going to be Marco Ciancetti and Marcello Maracciotto taking the win from Alex Capodia and Ricardo Dona, with Bradley Evans and Andy Cummings slipping to 3rd place. As taking no chances on this last lap, leaving plenty of space on the exit of each and every turn, is Ross Kaiser. And this a very, very significant result for them in terms of the championship. They had fewer success seconds in the pits than many of their rivals for this race, and they've really made it play out in their favour.
Yeah, and as you say, the really taking the opportunity to take any points rather than keeping their tinder dry and maybe thinking about taking less pit stop advantage there. They're going to go all the way. They're quite happy to take those points for the success seconds, and yeah, just take the points now rather than worrying about it later.
Yeah, particularly as for the next race, we're going to have James Swift and then Victor Crare and Pani McGluhan, who are 2 very quick entries that didn't make it to the flag, so they'll have slightly shorter pit stops, and that will... but they're not in the championship fight, so I don't think that's going to unduly concern Kaiser and Woodward either, even if it's the championship rivals that they're racing. As heading through the final turn now, the checkered flag is being readied, and it goes out, and it's a victory in the first race of the weekend for the Radical European Masters to Terence Woodward and Ross Kaiser. A great drive from the pair of them. We await the second place car. Here it comes. Alain Costa and Johan Scheer, an excellent second place finish.
Yeah, career best second place there for Costa, and a really well-deserved win. He did a fantastic job over the first. Johan Scheer did a great job over the first half of the race, and passed over again another really great handling and a good-looking car for Costa to make out the race.
So we have got Yusuf across the line. He takes third place, and that an excellent start to the weekend's race. Well, you know, I think those young spectators wearing the Frozen caps, "Let It Be" is probably the right message, isn't it? Is that the song from Frozen? I can't remember.
It's good enough for me, but
yeah. Woodward and Kaiser, they let the car do the hard work.
Yeah, that's right, exactly. And they've just attacked the race. They've not thought too much about strategy. They've just gone for every point that's available to them, and yeah, more power to them. And even with that extra fuel stop in the middle of the race, they've obviously got the consistent pace, and the car's just set up exactly as they need it to be.
Perfect start to the weekend for Woodward and Kaiser. We have, of course, got two further races from the Radical European Masters, and they are going to be at 10:35 Central European time tomorrow. So 10:25 we'll start our coverage, and then again at 15:20 tomorrow afternoon is when our coverage for the concluding race of the season. So across the line, off camera, was Marco Cencetti. He has won the Supersport class alongside Marcello Maratotto, with Capadia and Dona second of the Supersport runners from Cummings and Ellis. Well, a very dramatic race nonetheless, because a lot of the fancied front runners falling by the wayside and into retirement.
Yeah, it was quite an action-packed middle sector there as the pit stops unfolding themselves, and a few drivers dropping by the wayside during those pit stops as we now see the final results. So
it was the win for Woodward and Kaiser from Costa and Scheer, then Aussie Yusuf in third. John Corbett and James Winslow, after that first corner spin, a great drive to finish in fourth. Maratotto and Cencetti, they win the Supersport class in fifth from Dona and Capadia, and then Cummings and Ellis. Disappointing day for Jack Bartels and Stuart Mosley. Not all possibly as it could be for them. James Abbott will be disappointed to have retired late on. The same for Andrew Ferguson. Very strange Victor Correa and Paddy McGluen. Hopefully they will have that understeer sorted for tomorrow. And likewise for our early race leader, James Swift, never to emerge from his pit stop.
It's a fairly calm-looking Ross there. He's
a slightly less calm Terence Woodward goes to congratulate him.
Yeah, no, he knows what that means for his championship hopes, and we'll do a bit of number crunching before race 2 as we see the restarts and replay of this race.
So let's have a look then back at the highlights of an excellent first race of the weekend for the Radical European Masters. It was James Swift who led into turn 1 as Ricardo Dona and John Corbett tangled, scattering those behind, but fortunately both able to recover. Well, flying in the early stages was James Abbott, as he eased clear of Jack Bartels. Out front it was Johan Scheer and James Swift flying in formation, who were building the buffer as we were treated to a great scrap for the Supersport lead between Bradley Ellis and Marcello Maratotto. Ellis eventually able to squeeze through. Post pit stops, and Victor Correa taken over from Paddy McGluen, skittering across the gravel trap and into the tyre wall. His race coming to an end as Marco Cencetti and Alex Capadia did battle for what would ultimately become the Supersport win. Cencetti prevailing. But a good scrap nonetheless between the two of them. Meanwhile, Ross Kaiser had plenty to do, emerging from the pits in third. First of all, he cleared Aussie Yusuf, and then chasing down the best part of a 20-second advantage to the race leader Alain Costa, as Supersport leader Marco Cencetti was steadily picking his way up through the pack. This was the move decided the race. Kaiser selling the dummy to Alain Costa, who overcommitted himself to the chicane, running wide, and that allowed Kaiser to sweep past him. And thereafter, Kaiser was never headed. So Ross Kaiser, Terence Woodward, a very, very important victory for them, and one which has given them a real boost in terms of the championship. So don't forget to join us tomorrow morning for the second race of the weekend, which gets our coverage starts at 10:25 local time. In the meantime, from Will Brown and myself, Ben Evans, it's goodbye from Barcelona.